Hello everybody, I'm no stranger to Diablo-like games. In fact, I've spent an uncountable amount of time in Diablos 1 and 2. And then after that, the team that made Diablo 2 went off and formed Runic and made Torchlight. Well, I spent over 150 hours in Torchlight. Speaking of which, I will have linked in the video description mod lists for both Diablo 1 and Torchlight 1. If you are ever interested in that kind of thing. I mean, hell, I've even played the super obscure Dreamcast Diablo clone known as Record of the Lodoss War. Get the hell out, pardon the Freedom Knight, Asherim's coming to town. But back to the topic at hand. While Titan's Quest and Grim Dawn have failed to catch my attention for various reasons, Path of Exile has really drawn me in, and I think it's mainly because I have several friends playing the game as well. The free-to-play online game Path of Exile follows Diablo 2's example very closely in some respects, but it isn't afraid to change things up and innovate where innovation belongs. The game's story is simple. You're a prisoner, and no, this isn't the Elder Scrolls. Anyway, you get banished for your crimes to the continent of Rayclast. Once a seat for an empire, a legendary king came and massacred the Imperials who lived there, and took it for his people. Soon a curse took hold, and the king was driven mad. His entire land fell into darkness. Since then, this land has been used in lieu of the death penalty. People who were sentenced to death are instead banished to Rayclast. Your character is one of those who is banished, who is exiled, thus the Path of Exile. The game features a storyline that spans 4 acts, and although the bulk of the game is on a linear path, the game also features branching areas with many side quests that involve a little bit of backtracking. Just like Diablo 2, it features 3 difficulty levels, normal, cruel, and merciless. The leveling progression has the player going from the final act of normal to act 1 on cruel, and from the final act of cruel to act 1 of merciless. So to call the game anything but a grind would be an outright lie. But if you enjoy that kind of action RPG, top-down, click-to-move, grind type games, these hack and slash type games, then this might very well be the game for you. The game has you pick from one of 6 classes to begin with: the Duelist, Shadow, Marauder, Witch, Ranger, and Templar. Once an area known as the Labyrinth has been completed, the character will be able to pick from one of 3 Ascendancy classes, which can be thought of as subclasses for the original class they picked. A 7th class, with a steeper learning curve, known as a Scion, can become available to the player after finishing a certain objective in Act 3. The Scion only has 1 Ascendancy class, known as the Ascendant, but it can take on the properties of any of the other classes in the game, allocating passive abilities as if the player was playing one of those other classes. The game handles skills in a unique way. As the player progresses, they will earn skill gems that they will be able to socket into their gear. Unlike Diablo or World of Warcraft, where socketing was more or less a somewhat needed but not mandatory benefit, sockets are pretty much everything in Path of Exile. Playing a Templar, you want to summon zombies? Well, your witch has a zombie gem. Why not give it to your Templar instead? You can do that. Think of them as materia from Final Fantasy VII. Now, there's links between your gear sockets, and you'll be able to get a support gem that modifies how the skill works, thus enhancing or nerfing aspects of that skill. Although I created a Templar, using skill gems, I promptly turned him into a Charge Bolt Sorceress from Diablo 2. From a strictly game mechanics perspective, that is awesome! The level to which you can customize your loadouts is second to none. Now, looking at it from a story perspective, it is explained later why it's that way, but it's half-baked. Characters know no skills themselves and instead rely on gems to do even the most basic of actions. So in terms of your character, it is stupid, but mechanically, it's effective. It's stupid effective. But if you can get yourself to ignore how stupid it is, the game itself is a hell of a lot of fun. You want to equip a melee character with a bow and shoot flaming arrows? You can do that. So then, what makes the classes different from each other? To answer that question, we'll really have to go to Final Fantasy X. Introducing the Sphere Grid, the passive skill grid. Everyone who's played Final Fantasy X remembers this huge skill grid that all the characters shared but started on separate positions. They all started with very different abilities, but by traveling across the grid, you could eventually learn other characters' skills. Path of Exile is very similar in that respect, and all the classes share the same grid, however, where the classes start are in very different positions. How strong your character can become depends on how wisely you invest points, and if you gather skill gems and the gear to support that build. Customization is nearly endless, and every class has many viable builds. The main story can be experienced without min-maxing, although venturing into higher difficulty levels will require more planning. Boss fights are strategic affairs due to their high health bars, high physical damage, and area-specific attacks that need to be dodged. A sharp contrast to the mass slaughtering of monsters you'll spend most of your time doing. Now, like Diablo 2, the game is also experienced best with other players, and you'll be able to form groups and even guilds, having a shared guild storage. Speaking of storage, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering how this can be a free-to-play game. Well, there are two answers to that. First of all, cosmetics. 99% of the microtransactions in this game allow you to buy cosmetic upgrades for your character. There are no impactful pay-to-win elements in this game, except one. And that brings us to our second point, the stash. Everyone who's played Diablo 1, 2, or 3, or Torchlight 1 and 2 knows about the stash. It's a small chest sitting in town that you can store your items in. It's shared among every other stash in the game, and so when you go from one town to another, you keep your stashes. Well, in Path of Exile, your stash is shared among all your characters on your account in the same phase. By phase, I mean normal characters have a shared stash, hardcore characters have a shared stash, and then League characters have their own shared stash. A League is kind of like a season in Diablo. And finally, hardcore League characters have their own shared stash. Now, regardless of which one you're in, the number of tabs stay consistent. You start out with 4 tabs to store items in. Depending on how in depth with the game you get, you may feel yourself compelled to purchase more storage, or find yourself making hard choices about what awesome finds for other characters you may want to just ditch. So for most, but not all players, the company managed to get money from people wanting to expand their stashes. You keep these tabs forever, so each player is only likely to buy a handful within their lifetime playing the game, if they choose to do so at all. The main income from the game comes in the form of backer packs. If you choose to back the game, paying an amount of $60 for the latest one, $400 for the ultimate one, you'll receive a set of cosmetics relating to the content of that expansion pack. It makes your character look special. That's it. It has no in-game effects other than that. It's basically donating to the game in exchange for some goodies. Because ultimately a guy in flaming phoenix armor is exactly the same as a guy in his regular gear. It's just cosmetics. Each player will eventually receive a player home in the form of a hideout. They can also buy furniture and other cosmetics for their hideout, again, giving them no mechanical benefits other than having a fancy looking place. Only a handful of players ever actually avail themselves of these microtransactions that keep the game going. Most never think about it and enjoy the game for what it is, a free-to-play, Diablo-like, with tons of interesting features and unparalleled skill customization. So the ultimate question that always comes up is it worth playing? To which I have to ask you, do you like Diablo-like games? Do you like a game from a top-down perspective where you click to move, you click on your enemies, use an attack, kill them? If you've never played one before, this is free, so why not give it a try? Now, if you do like Diablo-like games, I highly recommend Path of Exile, especially with friends. Did you know that a new league is starting soon? The Essence League has just ended, and today a brand new league called the Breach League is starting. These leagues are like seasonal events. You can only play with other members of your current league. When your league expires, your characters get put into the pool of normal characters. I personally will be playing on Hardcore Breach. What Hardcore means is that if your character dies, they will be put into the normal pool of characters, being removed from the pool of Breach characters. Hardcore is a fun way to play, but if you have any kind of connection issues or your computer crashes frequently, maybe you don't want to do that. It's entirely up to you. The freedom is yours. And you lose nothing by playing on regular except for the gigantic influx of players. I'll probably be recreating my Lightning Templar when the new league goes live. So Path of Exile gets a positive recommendation from me. Thank you all for watching. Check the social media links for more content, and I will see y'all next time.